Hello everybody and welcome to this tournament playthrough video for Pro and Expert Division with variable wins. In this video I will go through all the holes that you will be playing in the tournament. Follow along with the playthrough information that you can find here on the side. That's club information, ball information, also when it comes to elevation, club distance and stuff like that. If you don't want to follow that, you don't have to if you don't want to, but there's always a plan behind it. Now, let's enjoy the video and go to hole number one. Hole number one, we are going for pin, and here if you do not have enough backspin on your club, we'd recommend to play with the driver that gives you the backspin. So that's the reason why you see me playing with a Thor's Hammer level 6, whereof in the info box I'm suggesting the Apocalypse. Because the Apocalypse has more power than Thor's Hammer, so if you do have a higher level Apocalypse, that's the club to be preferred, because that will help you being able to aim higher up. Now you can see me dabbling around with a Kingmaker here also, and the Kingmaker, I would say, may not be the best ball here. Now, in today's climate where we do have a lot of power 4 and a power 5 ball, I would definitely recommend to use one of those balls instead to allow yourself to start higher up and to use less overpower. Now, the ball comes in onto the green, and you can see we're ending up being on the right-hand side of the pin, but there will definitely be players dialing in this one for an hole-in-one. Fun hole in the mix of all the difficult ones, not maybe of the Sunshine Glades itself, but in general, this is a very fun par 4 to play, because yes, it is a par 4, it's not a par 3. Adjustment max plus 20 is what I'm using. Hole number 2. Here we are going to go for a rough bump. So hole number 2 of the Sunshine Glades to be more exact. 2 top spin and a little bit of right spin. Now the spins will vary depending on what type of wind direction you have. And that's like if you have a left to right type of wind instead, we'll be better off not playing with the right spin, for an example. But here we're trying to catch a little funnel that is by bouncing into the rough. Red ring by the rough line, we are adjusting max plus 10. And then it's time to center the ball and hit perfect. And you will notice here that due to the headwind, we will land a little bit further back than where we are aiming, because the headwind will compress the ball's flight, and therefore we will roll nicely towards the pin. Have in mind though, once again, that depending on what wind direction you do have off tee, this type of setup will maybe vary slightly. Hole number 8 is going to be a par 5 that we've been playing many times, and it's almost always the same type of play, or the same type of 2 play nowadays with all the topspin boosts. But let's take a look at the more normal way of playing this hole, because this is going to be the way of playing if having any type of wind besides a straight tailwind. Quarterback is what I'm starting with. If I would be having headwind, I would be playing with the rock instead, just to give myself a couple of more yards of power, max plus 10, and I'm using a side spin 3 ball, either a katana or a Kingmaker, to make sure that I don't have to go with a lot of curl, which could complicate things if we are unlucky. Bounces on the fairway over to the next fairway, and from here we're gonna play a sniper towards the pin. So you could hear me say that we're gonna play this type of way in any type of wind besides a straight tailwind, and that's because with a straight tailwind we can push harder on our drive to use a club with a lot of topspin to bounce on that fairway that we are ending up on now, and then try to get the ball to green. And obviously the different topspin boost balls and stuff like that will come very handy here if you do have any of those to spare. Second shot, once again, it's going to be the sniper. It's going to be somewhere between medium and maximum distance of our club, or let's say somewhere between minimum and maximum distance of our club. So check where maximum club are, check where minimum club are, and then make a call to what you believe the club distance is going to be. The spins here will vary depending on what wind direction we're having. I like to use a little bit of left spin here, try to avoid being as close to the rough line on the left. The ball guideline short always if there is tailwind, but maybe not this short that I'm having here on the video, because I'm truly going a little bit heavy on that offset. 10% elevation, true distance number, and even though this is a possible drop, I would say having to play with a sniper from distance is not going to be a drop that you're going to drop all the time, because there is bumps on that fairway, there is a lot of things that can happen when it comes to playing a wood club from far distance. However though, hole number 8 shouldn't be a problem to get the eagle, and the albatross is there to be claimed. Hole number 1, if we do have any sort of tailwind, we are going to send it. If we do have a crosswind or a headwind, we're going to lay up. But no matter what way we're doing, we're going to end up either on the green or by the green. It's just going to look different. So here, using the Berserker ball, starting at around the plus 25 yard mark, using 2 right spin. And you can see here now that I'm not using any topspin whatsoever, because that's a very easy thing to do as a mistake. Thinking that, okay, there's pretty far away from the green there, I might need to use some topspin. But no, we are adjusting for the drive, and then we go max curl to the right. And even if we do hit a great right, you can see here that the ball comes in, bouncing, and it lands here for a very short wedge. And if we would be having a better rollout, we would be on the green. But what we do want to avoid here is to roll over the green into the back rough. That's just so extremely unnecessary. The wedge for display, we play this one either with max topspin, and then for those that do have then Embringer 7 or 8, play max topspin with EB School minus 35% elevation, P4 numbers. And if you play a no spin, and then we do play with a power 5 ball settings, we're playing with a power 5 ball. The no spin is in my opinion the one to be the most reliable here, because the green is a little bit bumpy, and especially if you have a longer wedge, you do have a risk of having a pretty poor ball guideline if going for the max topspin. 2 grades in a row, and we still ends up with an eagle. This one is a very forgiving par 4, which also means that if you're going to have any chance for a top spot, you're going to have to start off with an eagle on hole 1. Take your game to the next level with our ultimate tournament text guide for the Carnival Sweeps 18-hole cup. We're going to play Vineyard Acres and Sunshine Glades. This is also a tournament where we do have steady wins. So the wins that you do get in the qualifying round will follow along up until the weekend round, or the final round as it's called, which is absolutely brilliant. As always, for 18-hole cups, we are doing a Master Division guide. And when it comes to Master Division, we are providing free-to-play ball alternatives and paid ball alternatives, full swing all the way from the day 1. Very important to make note that we are pushing hard from the first minute, trying to provide the content as quickly as possible without trying to mess with the quality one bit. You also get access to not just the text guides, but you do get access to videos with voiceover, combined with access to our Telegram chats, where you can ask questions if there's something that you just don't understand. So do what thousands and thousands are doing every single season in Golf Clash, is to join our Patreon on patreon.com/golfclashtommy. You have the link in the description down below, or you can scan the QR code here on the screen. Hole number 2, here it depends on what type of ball you want to play with. You can play with a ball that you have a lot of side spin and go for a rough bump. And you can also do play with a ball that do not have as much side spin, and you can bounce on the fairway. It's all down to personal preference what type of play you want to do here, because there is nothing wrong playing a bounce up, there's nothing wrong playing a rough bump. So 4.5 for backspin, 2 right spin, and the ball guidelines aiming right off the pin. What I need to say here is that it doesn't really matter what type of it does matter what type of wind direction you do have off tee, because that's going to somewhat determine what type of aim, what type of spins and stuff that you're going to do. So with that being said, if you do have a wind that is left to right, you will most likely not offset on the right side of the pin. But this offset here is specifically made for the wind coming right to left to counteract the push that we're getting from the wind. 10% elevation here. Don't be afraid to tweak your club distance or your elevation if you feel that would be better off for your outcome. Hole number 3, if we do have a headwind, I would strongly advise you to try to use a ball that you have as much power possible and as much wind resistance possible. Now I do understand that not everyone has a Power 5 Wind 3 ball, but I also know that there is a lot of people do have some either from buying, but also from winning for free in the tournaments. Starting with the bullseye by the rough line, max plus 10 is adjustment. And here with the Luminary ball, which is a Power 5 Wind 3 ball, we're going max curl, and the intention here now is to bounce on the fairway over to the other fairway and get ourselves a short iron towards the pin. Again, you can be a bit more conservative and somewhat get yourself a layup for a long iron instead, which obviously would be that you have your drive much further back. But the short iron has its benefits, as you can then play with the thorn. It allows you to play very few rings and can attack the pin there from distance. Now, you can see me doing a frame check, and that's all good. But will you always be able to do that? No, it all depends on what type of drive distance you have. It all depends on what type of play you want to do. But in this instance, we have yellow ring by the rough line using 5 bars of topspin. And we are then going to make the adjustment, which is going to be with no elevation, and it's going to be with the club distance we have either predetermined, depending on what type of dial in we have done, or it's going to be something that we do just go all by feel. A perfect ball here is going to hit the rough, and we will roll up the pin and dropping nicely for the albatross. Hole number 4 of the Sunshine Glades is a fun hole in my opinion. Another short par 4 where if you do have tailwind or you have the balls playing with a lot of topspin, you can get yourself directly to the green. What I mean with balls having a lot of topspin is that you can do a double bounce, bouncing on the pad we're aiming at now to bounce onto the small pad that is inside the water and then try to get to green. The water is definitely in play, have that in mind. In a direct tailwind, we can actually go directly to the small pad, and that's actually less dangerous in my opinion. But here we do have a layup, because we're not using a special ball in this playthrough. So what we are doing is we play ourselves as far down the fairway possible, play max plus 10 on the drive. Spins will vary, but we obviously want to avoid getting to the rough. The only problematic thing here from the left-hand side is the green. This green is weird. It's really bumpy, and it's something that you're going to have in mind. You can either play a dunk, like I'm doing here now, to avoid all the bumpiness and such. If you're playing the dunk, you're playing this no elevation, so 0. And then, rings from min generally, but it's going to be close to min. When it comes to the Endbringer play, you play an EB School plus 20. But again, this is a very bumpy green that we have. So if you feel that you can handle playing a dunk, honestly, from this range, it's going to be the better option of them two, in my opinion. Hole number 5. Here you can see me play with a special ball, meaning a Wind 5 ball. I'm setting up a Power 2 min line and red ring by the bunker. And after that, I'm swapping to a Power 1 side spin 3 Wind 5 ball. This to give myself obviously the side spin 3, but mainly here by playing from with QB will allow myself to be a bit more consistent when attacking the pin, because the first bounce will not be that high. Because if you are comparing your first bounce with a wood club compared to a driver like this, you're gonna notice that with the driver the first bounce is a bit flatter than with a wood club, and therefore it's gonna be a little bit easier to control. Now, this is a par 3 that is generally very difficult, and I think players that do have played this hole before is not really, I mean, might be some that are enjoying it, but like in general, it's not really a super duper fun par 3 because you're often going to have to use a lot of side spin, you're going to have to use some curls sometimes, depending on what type of ball you want to play with. But again, is this possible to be played with a free-to-play ball such as a Kingmaker? Absolutely, but then you're going to have to back up and play with a wood club instead. But this is an alternative suggestion for those that have the possibility to play with a special ball with, as I said, a vocal explanation of how you play with a wood club. For hole number 9 and option number 1, we are going to play with the rock to lay up on the right hand side. The reason this is going to be option number 1 is because we're going to have one play in crosswind and headwinds and one play in tailwinds. So max plus 10, we're using 4 bars of topspin and all the side spin to the left possible. And I'm using the rock here, so even if I'm using overpower with the rock, it has such a massive and good accuracy that even with some great balls here, we will still be safe. The goal here is to get the ball to be close to the rough, but not close enough so we're endangering rolling into it. Second shot, we play with our sniper, and here we can do 2 ways. 1, we can go for a rough bump if we do have the distance enough, or 2, we're going to bounce on the fairway before the rough. And I would say this is the more likely way of playing it if we do have a headwind in crosswinds or maybe a slight tailwind on the second shot. The rough bump, I would say, is definitely going to be a very valid play to play. So 10% elevation, true club distance, spin to be just through the hole in headwind, in crosswind spin to pin, so we're not going in and coming in too hot. And then we do have a perfect ball here in the end, and we are obviously crossing our fingers to get this one drop for an albatross. When the camera turns around, we know it's going to be close. Will it drop? Yes, it does this time, and that's a nice one to have in our back pocket if we do have a crappy wind here. So option number 1, we do have a sniper, or like a rock and a sniper play, and then we're going to take a look at a little bit more aggressive play with a very good chance to succeed for an albatross if the wind is correct from tee. The same thought process on hole 4 as it is on hole number 2. Is either a rough bump or it's just a bounce up. We're playing here from the min line, P3 min line. I kind of enjoy that. Like, I'm kind of what can we say? I'm somewhat in love when it comes to min lines and max lines because it helps you being very consistent. So what I'm doing here is that I'm adding whatever spins needed to get the ball guideline just a little bit long, and also over the left hand side. Min plus 20 to adjust, so we're not adjusting that much, to be honest. However, though, don't be afraid of increasing, decreasing elevation, club distance to suit the outcome that you're getting, especially if you're using practice mode, which then can obviously be used in that way to kind of tweak what type of adjustment that you are doing. If we do well, we're getting a drop for an hole-in-one. However, though, playing from the min line with a P3 ball will not be possible when it comes to playing in a tailwind. So what you're gonna do then, you're gonna either have to use a long iron to bounce up, or you're gonna have to move back and use a rough bump. The rough bump has to be the Goliath because you do need to have a lot of topspin. The bounce up you can play just with a standard, Goliath, Grizzly, B52, whatever you prefer. On hole number 5, we are playing down the right-hand side as the more, I would say, the conservative play and also the normal play, I would say, on this very tough par 5. If you do want to push for an albatross, I recommend to try to get over the fairway on the left, meaning that you shall bounce where we are right now, basically, but into the rough to roll out on the fairway that you can see on the top left of the game screen. You can attack the pin for an albatross if playing this way too, but you're going to have to get this ball as far up the fairway possible and be as close to the rough line on the left possible too. And that's not really going to be possible with some type of wind angles, which is also why the reason that type of shot is going to be more of a safe eagle play is really going to be the thing to think about, especially as well when you do have the headwind here on the approach, because now you're going to have to be either extremely aggressive looking for a double bounce rough bump by doing something like that, you can see, but that's going to be so extremely aggressive that in my opinion it may not be worth it. So what I decide, if I'm not going to go aggressive on the drive over to the left, I do lay up here on the right, and I'm then going to do a single bounce into, so I'm gonna have my first bounce on the fairway, second bounce into the rough, to then roll out onto the green or just short of the green. That allows me as well to play with free to play ball. I don't have to waste any of the good balls, and I can somewhat just look at it from my own perspective, thinking, okay, is it realistic to think that I'm gonna get an albatross here? Is that a yes? Okay, then I'm gonna obviously push more aggressive. If it's a no, I'm gonna try to take the cheapest and simplest way to get myself the eagle. On hole number 6, you do get the option to either get your drive over on the left of the middle bunker or that you do on the right. We are choosing to go left in this instance, and we are going to make an adjustment that is max plus 10. I'm gonna take the shot, and you can see that I'm using max overpower with a completely slow needle. That's a trick that you can use to get yourself a little bit more distance without having a shaky needle when you use overpower. The ball bounces consistently over here on the fairway, and we are approximately around 330 yards. You may be thinking, can I send this one? Yes, you can, but you have to have a pretty decent tailwind. But when it comes to the send it, that has become less and less of a favorite of mine. That's because it is so easy to go into the water by having a bad bounce, and it's also not that easy to get the ball to actually stop on the fairway on the other side of the water, in my opinion. Now I'm actually going for a rough bump here, and I wanted to show you this type of replay as it is on the more aggressive side, but it's also the way to give you the most consistency in terms of attacking for an eagle. But if you do want to take the more conservative route, which is, I mean, I'm nothing against that, but what you're going to have to do then is to bounce on the fairway further back and then bounce up towards the pin. But I always want to try to show you, regardless how aggressive it is in these playthroughs, wanted to show you the best possible chance for an albatross. No elevation on the second shot, and then we bounce into the rough, roll up onto the green, and dropping for the eagle. Hole number 7 here, we are starting with any type of power 4 ball. This to find min line as high up possible really. We need to have in mind that when it comes to a headwind, it's going to compress the ball guideline or like the ball's flight, and we're going to land further back than where we aim. The intention here now is to bounce over the fringe, to not have the second bounce on or by the fringe, because there is a risk of getting a glitch roll there, which we obviously don't want to have. Spins will vary depending on if you have a tailwind, crosswind, or a headwind. And here I'm using as well one right spin, which in the end shows to be not needed, as we're gonna miss pretty decently on the right hand side. But this is a way of playing this hole that I do feel personally is a very interesting way of attacking the pin. But you have to obviously do a little bit better than what I'm doing there in terms of either to change the spins, either change the adjust or the elevation. But 20% elevation is the default elevation I'm going in with here on hole 7. For hole number 7 of the Sunshine Glades now, all right, we have to be, I'm thinking I am quite smart here when I'm doing this type of play. So we're gonna set ourselves at P2 min line with our quarterback and katana, 4 backspin and 3 left spin. Now we're looking to just position ourselves. The position is key here for the second shot that we're gonna play, is that we do obviously don't want to roll into the rough, that's a no-brainer, but we do want to sit there at the fairway as well. So what we do is that we do make the adjustment, max plus 10. We center the ball, and now we're just gonna ping it down there. Now, I want to be perfectly transparent with that this is a conservative way of playing. We don't put any type of water in play at all, and we give ourselves a good look at the eagle from distance because we're gonna play into a funnel. What you need to have in mind though is like if you do have a tailwind, or you do have the possibility to play with high level clubs and a good ball, then you can try to blast that ball actually directly to green. In a direct tailwind, you can, that's actually a quite easy shot in my opinion with very little risk, but as soon as you have some crosswind elements into it, that's going to be a bit aggressive and you're going to have to flirt with the big bunker there and also the water, and obviously that's not something we want to do. So for me, my mindset is like, okay, if I'm having a headwind or a crosswind, I'm going to lay up. If I do have a tailwind, I'm going to send it. Now we are going for a rough bump here, like rough bump or a bounce down. So we can either then position ourselves doing here from a min line and then bounce up towards the pin. For those of you that do fancy the rough bump, then you can do so also. You can see here that when we're wiggling around, there is a nice little sticky spot there that we're trying to catch. And that's a sticky spot that you can try to catch from the rough bump as well. So if I would be choosing for one route to go with in a tournament, I would go for the rough bump. But it kind of requires like a good ball. It requires a good wind angle as well, because if we're not having that, then obviously the bounce down is going to be the way I'm playing. Now, we weren't really close on that one. I guess that's why I did cut off the video in pure frustration, but at least now you understand, you know, how I'm looking at it and what type of plays you can play. Birdie in the end is definitely going to be not any type of issues to get. Hole number 8 of the Sunshine Glades, we are going to bounce on the fairway, or like the fairway pad over the water, and attack the pin for a drop. Now I'm starting by aiming at the hole, and once I've done that, then I'm applying some backspin. Why do I do that type of extra step by aiming before spin and then adding spins? It's because I do want to have a clear reference with my ball guideline combined with the ring reference by the rough line. It's always good to have at least two references on a par 3, because having just one reference that is clear enough, that's going to bring a lot of inconsistency. Mid plus 10 is what I'm adjusting. Ball comes down onto the green. You know, coming in a tad hot though, I must admit, but it's dropping nicely for an hole-in-one. Have in mind that the spins will vary in a headwind and also in a crosswind. Here we had a little bit of tailwind, so let's say in a headwind we will most likely do a little bit less backspin than what I have in the video, and that's the same with the crosswind really, where a little bit less backspin would be sufficient there too. Hole 8 offers a good chance for an hole-in-one. Hole number 9, here we really want to have some tailwind. Why is that? It's because we do want to reach over the water, rough and sand on the left hand side. Having to play on the right hand side is going to make this albatross chance much less. I mean, it's still going to be a chance, but it's going to be much less likely to drop. So what we're doing is that we use the club with the most power. We use as much topspin that we can, and in this instance I'm keeping myself with a tight on ball just to show that it's makeable. So I do make the adjustment max plus 10. Then I'm pushing up to max and using whatever I believe then is the needed overpower. Sure, you can go max overpower, you can see how much room we have on that fairway, but I obviously want to use as little overpower as possible to make sure that I can hit perfect as well with that needle. Those of you that have the possibility to play with a power 4 or a power 5 ball should do that. This because you will then be able to start higher up, and that could, if the wind angle is good for you on the drive with some tailwind is my point, then you can stay away from actually needing any sort of overpower at all. Second shot, you can either bounce on the fairway or you can do a rough bump. It's all down to personal preference. The bounce up, the only thing to think about there is that you have to have a little bit more, what can I say? You have to have some distance control because it's otherwise very easy to go in between clubs. When it comes to the sniper rough bump here that we're doing, you have a bit more room and can kind of smash the ball down there in a bigger extent. Comes onto the green and we're dropping nicely for an albatross. On the drive here in hole number 8, we are playing the ball down the fairway and looking to be positioned in a very nice way to use our guardian on the second shot. Adjust max plus 10, only using approximately 0.8 ball of right curl. You may wonder, why do I use both the right spin and the right curl? The reason for that is the slope on that fairway, because that slope on that fairway is pushing the ball a lot back to the left. So if we're not using the curl, we're going to force ourselves to land very, very close to the rough line with our first bounce, and that's not something I'm interested with. Second shot, you can decide to either go for a rough bump like this, or you go for, a backspin shot like this with our guardian, which is the more conservative way of playing. We're using the slope there behind the pin to let the ball roll back into the hole. Or you go for a rough bump, which is that skinny rough that you have on top of the bunkers that is before the green. Now, I totally understand that players feel that that's a very aggressive way of playing, but if comparing this rollback play and the rough bump, then the rough bump is by far the easier way, not easier, but by far the best chance for a drop. But we're getting the rollback to drop, which is definitely not something that I expect to happen every time, but very nice when it happens. Hole number 9. This is a very long par 5, especially if we can't reach over to the fairway over that rough. And we can't do that if we're not having a decent tailwind combined with a topspin boost ball. So here we do lay up. I decided to choose to use a power 4 ball. And the reason for the power 4 ball is to give myself a little bit of an easier time on the second shot. But does this mean that you can't use a Kingmaker or like just a standard power 3 ball? You can most definitely use that. It's just gonna make the drive to have to a little bit longer, because obviously the lesser power we have, the lesser room we do also have in terms of how long we need to have the ball to roll there on the drive. So ultimately we do want to have the ball as close to the rough line possible, where you can, depending on ball power, have a little bit of leeway. Max plus 10 is the adjustment on the drive. Second shot we do play with no elevation and it's max numbers, because we are more or less always going to do from max line. I'm using the wood club that gives me the most power. In this instance it's the Cat 7. Center the ball and it perfect, because this is not a shot that you want to take easy with either. So you do want, in this case, to make sure to be accurate here, to give yourself a short iron towards the pin. Now I'm changing to the thorn here, and we're gonna not play for max on the approach. We're gonna play somewhere between min and mid, but we're gonna take the third video as well so we can watch that too, obviously. So there we go. The third shot is gonna be a short iron, like I mentioned. We are close to approximately mid distance, I would say, trying to build some sort of a reference with a pin check. But you can only imagine when you come to hole 9 and you need to get this one eagle to have a good spot in the tournament. That's a lot of pressure. And that's what makes this par 5 really difficult, as we are actually fighting here to get ourselves the eagle, and obviously in the easiest possible way. Having this type of wind on the approach gives us definitely some leeway in terms of faulty adjustments and such. But you have to be focused, you have to be correct with your adjustment and ball centering and pull angle and all those type of things. Otherwise, you're not going to drop this one for the eagle. But to end up here on hole number 9, you do have to play 3 shots more or less all the time on this hole, if you can't use a very good ball to get over that long piece of rough that we do have there by the drive. Thank you everybody for watching this playthrough video with variable wins for Pro and Expert Division for the upcoming tournament. If you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to hit the thumbs up button on your way out. Good luck in the tournament.